everybody. We're going to get started. We're at the Indigenous and Northern Affairs Committee of Parliament on the unceded territory of the Algonquin people. We always remind all of us and all Canadians that we're in a process of reconciliation, and part of it is understanding Canadians' history and relationship with our First Peoples. Today we're honored to have the new minister, Seamus O'Regan. Minister Reagan, welcome. And we have you for 60 minutes. And we are anxious to hear from you. And so you have 10 minutes to present, and then we'll have a series of questions. So anytime you're ready, you can begin.
Attempt not to use up my time by pouring water. But my deputy will handily pick up the spillage, which is a metaphor for something. Madam Chair, thank you. I'm pleased to be here today on, as you acknowledge, the traditional territory of the Algonquin people to speak with members of this committee in my new capacity as Minister of Indigenous Services. Joining me, Jean-François Tremblay, Deputy Minister of Indigenous Services Canada, and Paul Topple, who is our Chief Finance, Results and Delivery Officer. Fundamental to our work as a government is our relationship with Indigenous people, and I recognize the important work that this committee is doing to further their priorities across Canada. In particular, I want to thank you for your recent report on reserve, on long-term care, and I look forward to responding to your findings. En tant que ministre des Services aux Autochtones,
as Minister of Indigenous Services, my job is to advance work that closes socioeconomic gaps and improves the quality of services for Indigenous peoples. All that in partnership with them in a way that promotes self-determination as well.
President of Treasury Board and Minister of Digital Government identified 5 interconnected priority areas where our joint work is needed. They are keeping children and families together, quality education, improving health outcomes, reliable infrastructure, and economic prosperity. At the center of each of these priorities are real people, individuals, people, communities. Much progress has been made in these areas, and the work is, of course, ongoing. To that end, Indigenous Services Canada requires immediate funds to continue delivering on our mandate. C'est ce à quoi surveillant le budget.
That's what the supplementary estimates B and interim estimates are all about. Today, I will briefly outline my department's supplementary estimates B for 2018-2019 and the interim estimates for 2019-2020. Now, this is to address the funding requirements for the first quarter of the coming fiscal year. And then we'll be happy to take any of your questions. The supplementary estimates B for Indigenous Services Canada reflects a net increase of $273.6 million. So this brings the total appropriations 2018-2019 to $11.7 billion.
Estimates is $99.8 million for the Emergency Management Assistance Program. This is a critical appropriation in the supplementary estimates. In the past year alone, Canada has seen its share of floods, wildfires, and severe storms, which have had grave impacts on a number of First Nations. In fact, they have displaced more than 10,000 on-reserve residents in Canada. Madam Chair, thanks to Budget 2018 funding, we have been able to better respond and reimburse communities faster for costs incurred due to emergency incidents. Indeed, this fiscal year, over 99% of evacuated people have been able to go back to their communities, and we are working hard to get the others home as soon as we can. Our government has also made historic investments to accelerate reforms to First Nations child and family services. Budget 2016 provided $635 million over 5 years as a first step, and Budget 2018 committed a further $1.4 billion in new funding over 6 years. It is essential we put the safety and security of Indigenous children at the forefront of what we do. There is a pressing need within Indigenous communities to raise young people in their culture, in their language, and in their communities with their families. As such, the second item in these estimates is part of these investments to address funding gaps and support efforts to keep children and families together, where it is in the best interests of the child. These funds are already at work, Madam Chair. As you are aware, we put an item on notice this week, and I look forward to introducing it in the House shortly. I am limited in what I can say about it until it is formally introduced in the House. What I can say is that I look forward to talking with you and listening to each one of you in the very near future. The next item I wish to bring to the committee's attention is $64.4 million towards advancing a new fiscal relationship with First Nations. This funding will support communities in developing governance and community-led planning pilot projects. It will also ensure that First Nations are no longer required to pay for third-party management. A key element of this new fiscal relationship is a 10-year grant starting on April 1st, 2019 for eligible First Nations to deliver core services. Interest in this grant has been very high, and we are working now with eligible First Nations to finalize agreements for the April 1 entry into the grant. And the last item I will touch on in the supplementary estimates B is $37.5 million in funding for First Nations elementary and secondary education programs. A new co-developed funding approach for First Nations kindergarten to grade 12 education takes effect April 1st, 2019. This formula-based approach supports First Nations control of First Nations education. And it helps to ensure predictable funding that is more directly comparable to what students at provincial schools receive. More concretely, this funding would mean real change for First Nations kids. For example, thanks to Budget 2016 funding for education programming, the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne is taking Mohawk immersion learning to the next level. They've implemented a new math program in Mohawk, which is aligned with the Ontario math curriculum. This means that the children can now learn math in Mohawk in their immersion classrooms. We will start to see more and more successes like this replicated throughout Canada by way of regional education agreements. And I'll turn now to the interim estimates, and we'll highlight some of these items. Le budget provisoire des dépenses de services aux Autochtones Canada s'élève.
The department's interim estimates will be approximately $7 billion. This funding would ensure that Indigenous Services Canada is able to carry out its activities in the first 3 months of the fiscal year until the full main estimates are approved in June. Among other things, a timely appropriation of these funds would ensure that First Nations are able to take full advantage of the start of the construction season.
Healthy and safe homes are integral to creating healthy and safe communities. We also know, however, that Indigenous people are more likely to experience poor housing conditions than the general population. According to Statistics Canada 2016 census, 18.3% of Indigenous people live in crowded dwellings. With that in mind, we are making progress with the Assembly of First Nations on the co-development of a First Nations housing and related infrastructure strategy. This will contribute to more sustainable and healthy First Nations communities. With the AFN, we are also co-developing a new operations and maintenance policy framework that will provide greater flexibility to First Nations to manage their assets on reserve. It is also why, amongst other things, the Government of Canada is working in partnership to address the serious housing needs of Cat Lake through immediate action and long-term planning. We know that decades of neglect are challenging to reverse, but we will be working in partnership to achieve results for the people of Cat Lake First Nation and for all Indigenous people in Canada. I joined Cat Lake Chief Matthew Kiwakapo last Thursday to sign an initial framework agreement that means a solid plan moving forward. This agreement includes $3.5 million to support 15 new housing units, as well as additional funding for demolition, site preparation, and the shipping of materials. $2.1 million to repair 21 existing units is also there. $2 million for the delivery and installation of 10 portable housing units, expediting the 7 new units that are currently underway. Chief Kiwe Kapo invited me to join the community, and I have gratefully accepted his invitation. Madam Chair, community members, I urge you to support the appropriations requested in these estimates. The funding will enable us to continue to address the day-to-day realities in Indigenous communities in a holistic way. Thank you. Miigwech.
Thank you very much. And we see progress on many of the files this committee actually studied. And so I think all members recognize that advancement. We're going to start the questioning round, and we begin with Monsieur MP Robillard.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Hello, Minister. Welcome to our committee. Education is fundamental. The new approach, the new funding approach for First Nations education from kindergarten to high school.
Completed thus far 157 projects. Some of them are ongoing. Providing sufficient predictable funding for education is a cornerstone for strengthening First Nations education, improving outcomes, but obviously not just now, but for the future. And I think it's really important that it is essential to the future prosperity of Indigenous communities, and it is also essential for them to build up the capacity that they need in order to handle what I believe to be an extremely bright future for them when it comes to economic prosperity, but also in the governance of their own affairs. That funding, as I said, has to be predictable, it has to be efficient. We are co-developing an approach that's taking effect in April 2019 that will put First Nations in the driver's seat when it comes to First Nations education. It will support full-time age 4 to 5 kindergarten. It will ensure special education funding is more predictable, which has been something that they have raised with me personally, and we will continue to work with them, I think, in what is an essential transformation of First Nations education.
Au cours des dernières années,
Over the past few years, we've seen huge natural disasters which have had a major impact on First Nations. First Nations need sometimes to be moved or even evacuated. Could you perhaps flesh out your introductory remarks and talk about the increase in funding for the emergency management program?
Fourth or fifth day as minister that I attended the BC Gathering of Chiefs, and that to me was an incredible eye-opener on the importance of emergency management assistance. It was from most of the questions that I took from the floor on that day were on exactly this, and for good reason. It involves their safety, it involves their security. We provide emergency management support to on-reserve Indigenous communities through the Emergency Management Assistance Program, as you know, for the 4 pillars of emergency management, which are prevention, mitigation, response, and recovery. We reimburse First Nations partners, provincial and territorial governments, and other third-party service providers like the Canadian Red Cross for any eligible costs incurred in the delivery of emergency management systems to First Nations communities. Supplementary Estimates B includes $99.8 million to reimburse First Nations and emergency management providers for on-reserve response and for recovery activities in 2018-19. And if you look at what's driven those costs, $16.58 million for flooding, $26.92 million for wildlife response, $1.86 million for response costs for other emergencies such as tornadoes, $8.88 million for long-term evacuation costs, $74.91 million for recovery costs, which, things like critical infrastructure that need to be replaced as a result of a fire, for instance. For the past 4 years, response and recovery costs have exceeded A-based funding of $29.3 million, and options to address this persistent funding shortfall are being explored right now. And I expect, to be honest, it's not going to get any better. The funds being requested will ensure First Nations communities receive funding at the level to address that response and to recover. It supports the Government of Canada's commitment to deliver consistent and high-quality programs and services to First Nations.
Je crois que les Canadiens
I think then Canadians are monitoring the progress made by our government on long-term boil water advisories. In Canada, it's hard to imagine that there are still people who don't have access to drinking water. Could you perhaps talk to us a bit about the work that's being done to resolve this issue, to lift long-term advisories and efforts to make sure that this situation doesn't happen again?
We just lifted our latest boil water advisory yesterday, which puts us now at 80. And I mean, this is something that we heard very clear during the election campaign, and since then, it's something that Canadians can grasp onto for exactly the reasons that you cited. You know, the idea of a community not having access to clean drinking water. Our government right now, as I said, we're on track to lift. We're on track for our goal to lift all long-term drinking water advisories on public systems on reserve by March 2021. We also know that the work doesn't end with the lifting of long-term advisories. We're providing some sustainable investments to prevent short-term advisories, to expand delivery systems, to build capacity of and retain local water operators, train people on the ground in the community, and put in place systems for regular monitoring and testing. Decades of neglect are challenging to these reserves, but we are working in partnership with them to develop plans to meet their specific needs. You know, a lot of work needs to be done, but so far the results are encouraging. Like I said, 80 long-term drinking water advisories have been lifted so far, including that one yesterday. That was in North Spirit Lake, Ontario, and that one had been in place for 17 years. You know, I visited one facility in Piapot in Saskatchewan, and you know, the women who run this particular facility have trained long and hard. They work long, hard hours. My God, are they proud of the work that they're doing and the fact that they are doing that work in community and they are the ones doing it. Although I have to say that the other thing that really struck me, and it was pointed out to me by the leadership, is of course how spaced out many of these communities are. I think that when we see images sometimes in the media, we see some communities which have houses that are in close proximity to one another, but a number of these communities actually have great distances between the houses, so, which makes, obviously, dealing with their water needs more complex, I think, than meets the eye.
Merci, monsieur.
Very good. That ends the questioning at this time for the Liberals, and we move on to the Conservatives, and we begin with MP Kevin Waugh.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome, Minister and officials. Well, let's start with Piapot. We've heard from department officials because they had a fire there last year. They have no water treatment. They're on long-term water boil advisory again. We also had this week in my province, Carry the Kettle, Nakota Nation. They also had a fire. They're out of operation now. We've heard loud and clear with these long-term boil advisories, there is no education after they are lifted. And this is a major concern. So how are, you know, Minister, I know you've only been in here for 5 weeks, but it's interesting you're talking about 80 boil water advisories lifted. The website used to tell us how many are coming back on. And I know your government wanted to be transparent, but all of a sudden, we don't see those coming back on. You know, I was on your website yesterday. There is no indication of any long-term water boil advisory coming back onto short-term, and I wonder why that is.
I think, and I could be corrected by my deputy, but I believe that the reason is we give it 6 months. Is that the time duration?
I need to check. There's no, we committed to be as transparent as possible, and we will continue to do that. There's no change in our policy. If there's a mistake on the website, sometimes there's a delay because it depends on when we get the information. That could happen, but it's not a desire to not provide information that we were providing before. As you have noticed over the last few years, actually, we have increased more and more the access to the information, and we try as much as possible to make it live, actually, on the website.
And frankly, Mr. Watt, if it is the case that we give ourselves 6 months before we get it back on track, then that should be spelled out in there as well, so that's transparent.
So how long does the community need to be off the long-term water advisory before they're taken off the list?
If the long-term advisory stop, the way it works is as soon as it's done, there's test of the water, there's a recommendation that is made, and the chief and council and the band council decide if they're getting off, and they say that the water is proper for consumption. As soon as we have this information, we try to put it on the web.
And let me speak to the two examples that you brought up. I mean, in Piapot, I visited the interim water facility, and it's really, to be honest, quite impressive. And now that is the interim one, and the women who I met there were incredibly well trained and quite proud of that training. If they complained of anything, it was overwork. We need to get more people trained up so that they're not working the hours that they're working, which are pretty extensive. And they showed me the facility, the site that had burned down. But we are committed to rebuilding that with them, and with Carry the Kettle, we're working with them as well. I've spoken with them as well.
Yeah, because that happened
my
on
officials,
Monday night.
Yeah.
I've got to ask you, because you're a former journalist like myself, yesterday's testimony, you seem to be the pond in all of this. The former Attorney General...
Chair, point of order. What's the relevance?
I was just going to indicate
ask
it's
about-
related to the estimates.
No, it's related to the new minister.
Well, I'd ask that all members, I know that we're very anxious to be talking about what happened yesterday, but I'm going to encourage you that you need to focus your questions on the document, the supplementary estimates, and try to keep your questions focused in that direction. MP McLeod.
Point of order. There's always been considerable flexibility when we have a minister that has come to the table. It's only probably once or twice a year, and in the past, considerable flexibility has been given by the chair in terms of more general things related to the department. So I would just put that on the record that we need to be consistent with how we've dealt with this in the past.
I'm going to suggest that anything related to the fiscal management of the department and the services that Indigenous Services provides would be appropriate. We have been fairly lenient, but testimony related to the politics revealed yesterday, in my interpretation, exceeds the demands or the guidance of it being relevant. So,
Well, I will ask a fiscal question.
all right.
Minister, I couldn't help but notice you were in Mark Province last week, and I couldn't also help notice this one picture. You were in a jet. So was that a Challenger?
No. That was an unfortunate tweet. I think, Georgina, what was it? It was a Beechcraft 1900, whose chairs normally are right on your knees. I had an official with me who got a new telephoto lens and put the seat down in front of me, and it looks like I'm G5ing it. I can tell you that's not the case. It was absolutely not the case. We were on a plane with elders, with members of the community. If you don't mind me saying so, the member of the committee here, Georgina Jolibois. This is a normal way for people in the north to travel. It's the most cost efficient when we're going from place to place. It's just, I thought the view outside the window looked kind of cool, and it turned out to be an absolute disaster of a tweet as they go. It in no way reflects the way that we travel. It certainly in no way reflects our priorities. Just a stupid old tweet.
What was the cost of the...
I don't know, it would be in keeping with our departmental costs. I mean, these things would be out there. It's honestly, Mr. Waugh, if you saw the plane, it's something that you would see normally in North Saskatchewan. A Beechcraft 1900 ain't sexy. There's not much leg room. It's just how we get back and forth. And I grew up in I can say, as a former baggage handler at Goose Bay International Airport in Labrador, flying around all over Labrador, this
It's
is
fun, right?
pretty typical stuff. In fact, for me, I got to be honest with you, I'm used to a twin otter or a beaver, so this is pretty high end for me.
So you were in Regina that week, and then you flew to Saskatoon with
Yeah.
the Fond du Lac announcement?
Yes.
And then you chartered this plane up north?
Yes, because there was a number of people with us. I mean, it also looks like I'm alone. Most of the people were near the front of the plane because I think the heat was better up there.
And you made an announcement in La Ronge, I think?
Yes.
Didn't you?
Yes,
How
we
much?
did. For the treatment and wellness center there, I think it was close to $10 million. It will affect tens of thousands of people in neighboring communities. It was something that they had worked for and on for quite some time. Addictions are a huge problem up there. In fact, I could expand on this in a later point, but we recognize it's a huge problem. In many communities in the north, the people there got together and they've done exemplary work in finding programming and a facility that will meet their specific needs. It was an honor to be up there with them.
Moving on to MP Georgina Jolibois.
Thank you very much. I do want to make a clarification on traveling with you that day. I did make it to La Ronge on my own, and then because I wanted to be at the second announcement, I caught a ride with the team to get to Saskatoon from La Ronge. So one way, not a round trip. I just want to clarify that, okay?
We were happy to provide it
That's right.
to you and
it
to
was-
elders who were present.
That's right.
Yes.
And that the plane was, with due respect to the minister, it was full. It was well attended by various people from Saskatchewan. So thank you for making that announcement, and thank you for being in my riding and assisting when you can. I do have some specific questions. When you spoke about Indigenous housing in your budget, and you spoke about AFN co-developing, exactly what does that mean? Because for me, I would be looking for a strategy and a comprehensive plan to help these communities, these reserves throughout Canada. And what does that mean? Please explain that.
Well, we know we can't just go about investing in housing and renovating homes on reserve without kind of taking a holistic view from the viewpoint of the life cycle of the asset, as they put it, in which case, the home and the kind of homes that specifically we need in the north and in Indigenous communities. So we are making a lot of progress with the AFN on the co-development of this First Nations housing and related infrastructure strategy. The idea being that we listen to them and we, through them, listen to particular communities about their specific needs, because the old way of doing it and one size fits all didn't work. We all know that. And even if you look at Cat Lake, a number of the houses there were kind of just planted there. We need to dig deeper into the standards that are required. I mean, houses going moldy. This is a cause of temperature that is constantly transient, constantly changing. And there are even small things that when I sat down with the chief in for conversations when I landed in Thunder Bay, one of the first things he mentioned, which was frankly quite obvious to anybody like me who grew up in the north, is storage. We're bringing all these materials up on the winter road, and we're not storing them properly. And as a result, things like lumber can go moldy before we even build a house.
So, unfortunately, can I cut
Please.
you off there? Thank you for the explanation. Exactly. Again, back to that. You said co-developing. We know from statistics, and we know when we visit reserves, what's happening in Cat Lake is the norm, the normal thing, and it's unfortunate from my riding to across Canada. Even residents whose homes burned down, or residents who are living with the mold, how quick is this plan coming together? Because the urgency for many of these reserves is now.
I agree. And with Cat Lake, we sat down and we did the deal. It will involve 36 new housing units, 21 new renovations and repairs. We are assessing those units right now with the community to determine, frankly, what's more cost efficient. It may be better in some cases. Just we can do repairs and renovation where the damage is not that extensive, and in other ones we need to demolish the home and provide temporary housing in the 10 portable units that we're bringing up there and that we will leave there. And you know, these are things that we have to work out with them. We are limited, as you well know, by the winter road. And you know, most people in Canada don't appreciate what a winter road is. Community I grew up in had a winter road. Most of the time, it has a full-time, year-round road now. It's no longer seasonal. But you have a very, very short window in which you can get construction supplies up there. The latest update that I have yesterday is that we still cannot get heavy equipment up. We're still getting light equipment up. In the next 4 days, we're expecting very cold weather up there. This is one of those cases where Canadians are praying for cold weather because that will sustain the road and we will be able to get the portables up there. You can imagine how heavy they are and how hard they are on those roads. That essentially is the challenge that we are facing right now. And so we are ready on one end to get as many materials up there as quickly as we possibly can. We are working with the province and with the First Nation. I spoke with with Minister Rickford of the Ontario government yesterday. We are working with them to make sure we can get those supplies up there as quickly as possible. It is, you know, much of it is the circumstances of living in the north. The only way that we can overcome them is by working closely with the community, and I talk to local leadership there regularly.
Unfortunately, these circumstances have been in existence for decades. This is not new. And the government seems to think that they're acting like this is a new thing, and my God, how we're going to help. I think First Nations across Canada have been asking endlessly every year, almost every day, for government to have a comprehensive plan.
And I would simply...
Okay.
And I would simply add to that you're absolutely right. And that is why we are moving as quickly as we can, but we are also taking the time to listen to get it right. We are consulting extensively. When I'm in front of reporters, you know, it's often, why can't you move faster? But at the same time, why aren't you consulting more extensively? It does take time to get it right. I know that's frustrating, but I think what I presented to you, and I think that, you know, what you will see are long-term solutions and long-term budgeting. And we are also looking at long-term block grants to communities so that they don't spend, you know, so much time on the administration level. I mean, many of these small communities only have so many people to fill out the paperwork and do the calculations. And when they are constantly reapplying for funding that they rely upon, that is time and energy that is wasted that could be used for better planning and for more forward-thinking adventure. And so, you know, what we are saying is, let us find you a more financial sustainable model so that you know where your money is coming from and you can spend more time getting it right.
So in the meantime, the residents continue to suffer because the government's trying to figure out a plan to assist when the urgency is now, because as we know, people are sick from the molded house. People can't afford many things and they're constantly struggling. When we send in a media team to these reserves, they see the horrific realities on the ground, and the government doesn't seem to take that seriously.
Madame Jolibois, that we will have trucks on the road within days.
Very good.
Thank you.
Questioning now moves to MP Will Amos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to our senior civil servants and to the Minister. Minister Regan, it was a real treat to go and visit the community of Rapid Lake, the most northerly community in my riding, Algonquin territory, of course, with our parliamentary secretary, Dan Vandal, and a member of your staff and from the civil service, from your department as well. It was a very successful visit, and I appreciate how your department enabled that. And there's a bit of a story behind it, and I want that to be on the public record, and then I'd love to hear your comments. This is a community that has been challenged for a number of years on the housing front, on education infrastructure, on community infrastructure. It still runs with a diesel generator. The power there is unreliable.
You're going to be having a question.
Of course.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
So this is a community with needs, significant needs, and to be able to go up there and make that announcement with the parliamentary secretary around new housing for teachers, that was fabulous news that resonated across the riding, well beyond Rapid Lake. And and we certainly hope there's more to come. And that's where the discussion went with Parliamentary Secretary Van Dal, and that goes specifically to these supplementary estimates. The issue of being able to the issue of securing the financing necessary to invest in a new school, to invest in a school that's connected to the hydro grid and not connected to diesel power generation. The issue of continuing to develop their community infrastructure, including but not limited to housing. All of these are just so important. And I just use this as an example of one community that reflects the needs of across this country. So thanks to you and your department for the hard work that continues on this file. I've been in touch with your office this week about this. I really hope there is continued action, because I think, as we'll all agree at this on this committee, every single kid deserves a chance. Every kid and every family needs to have a healthy home with good running water in order to have a chance. So I'd like to hear more about the specific aspects around getting communities off third-party management. That's been a big challenge in Rapid Lake. Success has been achieved there, but I'd like you to speak to how the monies that are being that were discussed in your statement, how those monies are actually going to be allocated, and how do we, over time, shift away from the need to have funding so that the management of finances by Indigenous communities is done in a sustainable manner.
Yeah, and I understand. As you said, that the parliamentary secretary went, and it was noted that it was the first time that a parliamentary secretary had been to the community. So I think that's terrific. As you said, 2 major infrastructure announcements in that community, which were tremendously important. $1.1 million in those projects. And the Algonquin of Barrier Lake Band Council contributed an additional $300,000 to it. So brand new wastewater pumping station, as well as a residence to house Kitiganik primary school teachers who come in from outside the community, and the connection to the grid. There's a tremendous desire amongst Indigenous leadership that I've met, and this is the case with the Cat Lake leadership. There were a few things, as I said, that they wanted added to the agreement that we had been working on once I saw them in person. One of the first thing that they mentioned was storage facilities to make sure that the equipment and materials that we were bringing up there were adequately protected from the elements. Well, the other couple of things were, I think, very telling. They wanted, first of all, somebody to come in a full-time position to help them manage their homes, to help them manage their new homes, and to help them maintain them. And then the other thing that they asked for, and I think it's tremendously important, is financial training. They wanted financial training for their chief, for their leadership, for their band members, for the council members, I should say, and for their administration workers, because there is a lot happening, and they want to handle these resources respectfully and responsibly. And of course, we're committed to all of that. So there's a tremendous want and desire for that sort of training, and to have that sort of responsibility, and to deal with the new funding that they are receiving, as I said, responsibly and respectfully.
If I have 1 minute, I'd simply like to draw your attention, Minister, and also to the Parliamentary Secretary, to the fact that today, during the section where members make statements, I'll be making a statement to recognize 40 years of public service by Jean-Guy White-Duck, who is the chief of Kitigan-Zibi. He was the chief of Kitigan-Zibi. Due to illness, he stepped back. But when one considers this is an individual who has served in elected and unelected capacities in a leadership role for the Algonquin for a generation and a half, that's a significant contribution, and I just wanted to highlight that because I think it's going to be important to the people of this region as we are sitting on Algonquin territory.
And I would add, he's borne witness to a lot over the years, and hopefully he's pleased, I think, with the work that is in progress.
Questioning now moves to the 5-minute round, and we begin with MP Kathy McLeod.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to start by reading an email that came directly to me, and it's way too common in terms of what comes to my door. And it's someone that is very concerned in terms of her band, in terms of how they're spending their money, and this is a band that's non-compliant with the Transparency Act. It's a very lengthy email. I can't get into it all, but what she says at the end is, I trust that you will use this information for the betterment of all members under the Indian Act, and her going through the same thing. The Assembly of First Nations is useless in promoting transparency and accountability. Then I went on and looked at your department reports in 2015-16. There was 97% of the bands that were in compliance. In your departmental results report for Indigenous Services, your target is now 75%. So it used to be 97 out of 100 bands would have access to the basic information that every other Canadian gets, whether it's federal, provincial, municipal. And you're now saying a quarter will not have access to basic information. Your new fiscal relationship, it's fine, but it is the people that have had a proven track record. It is not dealing with the communities that have had challenges. So what I'm going to say is, she is listening today to the proceedings at this committee. What have you got to say to her and all those people that come to me regularly who say, I cannot have access to this basic information that I deserve access to. This government doesn't have the guts to repeal this Transparency Act and put something else in place, and they are just letting it happen.
Let Paul begin, and then I'll finish.
So she's listening.
Thank you very much for the question. So while that's the target, over 90, 92, 93% of First Nations across this country are actually complying with
Target's
with that.
75%. You're dropping it every year.
That's the target, but the reality in terms of actuals is different. And therefore, there will be always anomalies in a large population, but we need to emphasize that the majority of First Nations are complying with and respect the principles of transparency and accountability.
So, Madam Chair, I'd like to say, why has your department not had the guts to repeal it? If you're not going to enforce a piece of legislation that needs to be enforced, why do you not have the guts to repeal it and replace it with something?
So we are, the government has committed to...
The new fiscal relationship does not do it. The new fiscal relationship is, you've got the people that have had good records over the years that you've entered into long-term. I am talking about the communities that are struggling, where people that I get the emails from are having a challenge.
Thank you for the question. We are co-developing, and the government is committed to a repeal of the First Nations Financial Transparency Act, but we're doing it in a respectful, reconciliation-oriented way.
It's been 3 years.
With First Nation communities across the country.
It's been over 3 years.
And we are looking at, through the co-development, the development of a mutual accountability framework that has as its underpinnings the transparency and accountability that all First Nation communities desire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just go on to my next one. That's been over 3 years, and we have nothing, and there's nothing for these people that are writing me, and I bet she's listening to this answer right now and is just flabbergasted in terms of access to basic information. I'm going to go on to my next question. We know there was an infrastructure bank, which was, I think, a $7 billion slush fund that funded one project. We know there's a medium fund that's, perhaps going to be looking at friendly op-eds, $500 million. And we know that you created the Vote 40 slush fund. There was over $100 million in Vote 40 slush funds that didn't get go out to the communities.
This is related to Indigenous.
It was Vote 40 Indigenous, because it's a slush fund. It doesn't go through the normal channels of being able to look at what's in Vote 40. So you created a slush fund that doesn't normally come through us, and this is important stuff. This is $100 million that Treasury Board said, oh, I'm not sure, and I can tell you what it is. It was for profile of Indigenous infrastructure allocation, support for distinction-based housing, $25 million. The first one was $75 million. Renewing the matrimonial real property rights implementation support program. So these are Indigenous services program put in through a slush fund. The money didn't go out. Why?
Thank you for the question. So as part of Main Estimates reform, in order to ensure that Main Estimates is tabled with information that includes the money, items that are in the federal budget, for the first time, that has transpired through main estimates reform. And as a result of trying to provide increased transparency to parliamentarians, they've created a central vote to put the budget items inside that vote.
So it's a slush fund, though. It has no accountability.
Please let the answer continue.
And the
Madam
vote
Chair,
and
it's my time.
It's over.
and parliamentarians as well as Canadians can monitor through the TBS website the monitoring of access to the money that is drawn down from that Vote 40.
Okay, that ends
and not
your
drawn down.
opportunity, your question. The 5 minutes is over, and we're moving on to MP Mike Bossio.
Thank you so much, Minister, for being here today, and staff. We really appreciate your presence, especially being so new in the job. I'm sure you came in and sort of like, okay. I mean, I'm still trying to get my feet underneath myself, so we really appreciate you making the effort to be here and provide these answers. I have a number of questions. First off, I'd like to say, the same as Will was saying, my Mohawk community, the Mohawk Sibe-Quinny, is very, very grateful for the expanded services and infrastructure, for eliminating boil water advisories. Our community has benefited directly from that, and they are very appreciative of that. They have received also exceptional training. You had highlighted that in your report. The training has been really outstanding, and I guess I'd like to. It sounds like this has been a common theme, that wherever we're ending the boil water advisories, we're training people on how to operate these systems in a very effective and efficient way. Are you seeing opportunities to use the same model of training for that, like we're doing a study right now on capacity building, to see if there's other areas we can increase capacity around human resources in Indigenous communities?
I'm going to get into that, but if I could just use a minute of my time that I have here
please.
to allow Paul or the deputy perhaps just to finish the answer to the honourable member's question on.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I'll take my time for that.
Yeah, I just want to mention it is the new process with the new main estimate. Any penny, any dollars used in this department that is associated to programs use the same terms and conditions that we use for all the money. So we don't have a fund that is special where we use different kind of norms and different standards to spend the money. The money on housing is under housing. We've got Treasury Board Authority under this, and that's how we use this money. And when you hear about the full budget of the department, it does include all the budget of the department at the end, and that's what we are accounting for, and that's what I'm accounting as an accounting officer. This is just, as Paul mentioned, the new approach to make sure that money was available upfront at the beginning of the year, money that was in the budget, because in the past, as you know, departments had to wait for this to go through different processes, which would delay, in many cases, implementation of programs and implementation of programs related to infrastructure, for example.
So to the larger question of capacity building, it's not only is it the right thing to do in terms of empowering communities. Frankly, it's financially the smarter thing to do, rather than coming into somewhere, building something, leaving it without the ability of local leadership to be able to work with it and to maintain it. So it checks off all the boxes. What it does require, of course, is some upfront costs. I mean, it does require that you take the time and the money, and it does take a little longer to make sure that you build up that capacity locally. But the long-term benefit, as you said, you witnessed, is tremendous. And the more that we do this, we'll see savings down the road from our end. I mean, the idea, and I keep, this came to me very early days of my job here, is that I'm a minister who's working himself out of a job. The more that we can devolve services at the local level, the better. The more that we can build up that capacity on the ground to deliver services directly to Indigenous members in their communities by Indigenous people in their communities, the better. It's better for us. It's better for them.
And I guess I'd like to give you an opportunity as well, Paul, to finish the answer on the Financial Transparency Act. These things take time. If you want to do them properly, they take time. And I mean, I know that the Financial Transparency Act came into place in 2013. So that's 7 years after the previous government came into power. Is that reasonable?
I think co-development and to get consensus from First Nation community members across this country takes time. But what I have heard from First Nation chiefs and community members across this country is that they all want transparency and accountability. How we get there in terms of a policy formulation that works is what chiefs and community members are working together on as we speak. And we will get there. At the same time, but in the meantime, there are positive momentum happening, in part through working with the First Nations Financial Management Board that is implementing, together with First Nation communities, financial administration laws that will include governance, internal controls, independent finance and audit committees that provides the rigor for community members in order to ensure that they are getting access to the financial information that they deserve.
We now move on to MP Arnold Viersen.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the Minister for being here today. I'm going to go back to the Vote 40 thing that in budget 2018, just over 71 million was assigned for the new fiscal relationship, but only 6 million was allocated. What happened to the 65, like the 65 million?
I'm going to ask Paul to take it.
So there is $64 million in the estimates here in front of you, and that $64 million is broken down in a number of components. About $15 million is what the minister referred to as a result of the contribution of this committee's work on default prevention in terms of its recommendations to provide funding to First Nations who had to pay for professional advisory services under third-party management out of their band support funding, and there's about 15 million out of the 60 that will go to First Nation communities to give them back so that they can govern appropriately. There is about another 40 million that the minister referred to in terms of providing the requisite capacity supports to First Nations in terms of improving their financial capacities, such as in Rapid Lake. In terms of improving their IT, IM systems in order that they can actually evolve in terms of increasing their financial autonomy.
But it seemed to have been rejected by Treasury Board first and then reallocated to your department from the other department. Is that correct?
There are two new fiscal relationship initiatives underway. And one is with Crown Indigenous Relations for engagement with self-governing First Nations, and then there was another initiative for First Nations under the Indian Act led by the minister, and it was both items were inadvertently put in one, and then it was segregated out.
Okay, now that's, I guess, the interesting piece is how the last time that we came around, we voted on this in that, and then it just seemed to be taken back and shuffled without a vote on it. Is that correct?
No, I believe it was a decision made by the Treasury Board Secretariat and Department of Finance on where they should class things in the parliamentary documents.
Okay. Now, the 65 million that you just talked about that's been allocated, this was allocated in budget 2018.
Correct.
How come it's now coming out now where it's going to go? It seems like it hasn't been spent. Only 6 million was used up in the last fiscal year. What's going on with that?
So, because an item is in supplementary interest does not necessarily mean that the money is not necessarily spent. We have the flexibility, depending upon the circumstances and needs, to cash manage post Treasury Board approval. Where circumstances desire, and checks are actually being issued as we speak, particularly to those First Nations under third party to get their money reimbursed for the costs of third party management.
Okay. Minister, I guess the fundamental issue, I went over this with the previous minister several times, the fundamental issue with the Financial Transparency Act is the rule of law. And if you're not prepared to enforce the law, then you should change the law. What is your understanding of the Financial Transparency Act, and when are you going to be tabling the repeal of that bill?
I mean, we may get to that point. I'll to be honest with you, and I understand concerns here, but You know, I have a number of other pressing priorities that are taking up my time at the moment.
Yeah, well, your government is suffering from a rule of law issue already, and right from the get-go, you said you were not going to. Your government said it was not going to enforce the financial transparency law.
Well, I would contest that we're having a rule of law issue.
You said you were not going to enforce the rule of law when it came to the Financial Transparency Act. What day will you be?
I would say we will continue to work with Indigenous partners to make sure that we get the results that we need, and that we will continue to strive to make sure that we achieve the transparency that they demand and that their members demand.
Mm-hmm. So what day will you be introducing the bill to repeal?
I'm not going to lock myself down to a date.
Do you have a date?
I'm not going to lock myself down to a date in front of this committee at the moment.
Okay. How do you have the bill drafted?
I'm not going to comment on that at the moment. It's just not right now one of my top priorities. I think my priorities are very clear, and those are priorities that we have dealt with in conjunction with our partners to make sure that we achieve the results that we need.
The priority is clear that you do not want to enforce the law, which is your job.
Final couple minutes now goes to MP Kent Hare. Welcome to our committee.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you for being here. I'm the Member of Parliament for Calgary 7, or Calgary Centre. We're Treaty 7 people, where the traditional home of the Blackfoot people, the Tusina people, and the Stoney Dakota Nation, and Métis Region 3. But I was struck by your comments that we're moving towards an education system now that recognizes that we should have commensurate funding for First Nations kids as to what they receive in the city. And I think I'm a big believer in that equality of opportunity. Whether you're born of a rich family or one that struggles, you get an opportunity to build your life. Whether you're born in the city or on a reserve, you get an opportunity to build your life. But there's an organization in Calgary called the Palix Foundation. And the research they're doing is more looking towards the time frame 0 to 3. And they're recognizing that life chances are largely formed within that time period of an individual's life. Is your department looking at better ways to support Indigenous communities in that critical 0 to 3 period to help support families, to ensure there's daycare spaces where they're learning through play, all those activities that track and move the child forward through the rest of their lives?
I have an answer ready to give you, but out of the corner of my eye, I can see the unbridled enthusiasm of my deputy, who seems very anxious to answer this specifically, so I'll throw it to him.
It's a very good question, and you're right. It doesn't start at the school. It starts before the school, and it's a very big preoccupation on how you do that. There's different things that we're looking at. Early childhood development, we've got programs that we're working on with First Nation communities on how to actually address. You may notice that with the new formula for education, we also provide kindergarten at the age of 4 now. Yes. So that's actually another plus. And all the work that we're doing on child family services is an important one. How do we make sure that it's not about apprehending kids and not only about protection, but prevention, supporting families to make sure that kids have the opportunity to grow in their communities, with their family, and actually being proud of their culture. Another aspect, it's if you look at the new formula for education, there's a $1,500 per student for First Nation languages that is included, which also we hope would help to facilitate and improve the capacity to grow in your language and culture close to your family.
And Minister, one more quick question. Again, with the Palix Foundation, the research they're doing on addictions and the like, you mentioned that you're working with programs in that regard, but they're tracking that adverse childhood experiences lead to addiction issues. And I'd encourage you and your department to look at the work of the Palix Foundation, how maybe you need to have your agreements tailored to having a understanding of what adverse childhood experiences are. I leave that at the Alberta government is moving forward on a lot of these agreements, but I just leave that to you guys to look into.
Thank you. That concludes our opportunity to have you here. We really appreciate having you here as our minister and taking your time to come out and see us. Meeting suspended, and we'll have Minister Carolyn Bennett joining us in a couple minutes. We are in the second hour of our committee, Indigenous and Northern Affairs, and we're very pleased to have Minister Bennett with us once again, and we're anxious to get started. So I thank you for your cooperation, and we'll get going whenever you are ready.
Excellent. Thank you. And we would like to begin by acknowledging that we come together on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people, and that we're here to discuss the 2018-19 Supplementary Estimates B, as well as the 2019-2020 Interim Estimates for Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs. Plus précisément, je discuterai des...
Specifically, I will discuss the aspects of the estimates that pertain to my work as Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations. I'm joined by Alex Lacroni, Chief Finance Results and Delivery Officer,
Deputy Minister, and Joe Wild, the Senior ADM for Treaties and Aboriginal Governments, and I think you will come to know that Joe's work has been very, very helpful in us getting as far as we are in helping get people out from under the Indian Act. So, as you know, our government is taking concrete steps to renew the nation-to-nation, Inuit-to-Crown, and government-to-government relationships between Canada and First Nations, Inuit and Métis, and to accelerate self-determination. In support of these fundamental goals, our department, 2018-2019 Supplementary Estimates B, present initiatives totaling $174.9 million, which includes $112.8 million in new funding and $62.1 million in net transfers with other government organizations. This brings the total appropriations for CERNA in 2018-2019 to $5.1 billion. Roughly half of that new funding, $57 million, reflects our commitment to resolving disputes outside of court whenever possible. And as we've discussed here at this committee many times, our government strongly believes that negotiating settlements focused on healing and closure outside the adversarial court process is both the most responsible way to resolve past wrongs and paves the way for a more respectful and constructive relationship with Indigenous communities going forward. I think it's important to reinforce that our work to support First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities to implement their visions of self-determination is intrinsically linked to unlock the untapped prosperity and closing long-standing socio-economic gaps. An excellent example de ceci est
An excellent example of this is the new funding in the estimates of $48.4 million for the Métis Nation Housing Strategy and the Métis National Heritage Centre.
Partnership with the Métis Nation to identify and advance shared priorities, including affordable housing. Through annual meetings between the Métis Nation, the Prime Minister, and key federal ministers, we have co-developed the Métis National Housing Strategy. And in July, we had the honor of representing Canada in signing the Canada-Métis Nation Housing Subaccord with the President of the Métis National Council and the Presidents of its governing members. The Housing Subaccord is funded from Budget 2018 with $500 million over 10 years and reflects a shared commitment to narrow the housing gap between Métis Nation citizens and non-Indigenous Canadians, and does so in a way that respects and supports the Métis Nation's right to self-determination. Funding also supports the construction of a Métis National Heritage Centre in historic Upper Fort Garry, Winnipeg by 2020. Le centre présentera les...
The centre will showcase the history of the Métis Nation and showcase the significant contributions of the Métis people to the development of Canada.
Exists in Canada, and this initiative will support the Métis Nation's management of its own culture, art, and history. The supplementary estimate, B, also includes funding for First Nations fiscal institutions to hire additional staff and open regional offices in Winnipeg, Halifax, and Ottawa. This will allow the fiscal institutions to support more First Nations to exercise jurisdiction over financial management and proper taxation, and will provide better access to affordable financing for infrastructure projects. Funding is also included for the renewal of the Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Education Agreement, which provides for continued First Nations self-governance over education programs and services, and an inclusive and quality education for First Nations students in that province. And I think at this table before, I have mentioned this huge success that it was 20 years ago that the Mi'kmaq Nova Scotia decided to take over their education system. At that time, their secondary school graduation rate was 30%, and today the Mi'kmaq education system in Nova Scotia has a secondary school graduation rate of 90%, which is higher than most of the non-Indigenous population in Canada. Les preuves sont claires. Les systèmes éducatifs dirigés.
The evidence is clear. First Nations-led and First Nations-governed education systems achieve better results for First Nations students.
The department's interim estimates is $2.2 billion. This will provide sufficient funding in the beginning of the fiscal year to deliver regular programs and additional requirements, specifically for out-of-court settlements, early settlements of specific claims, and self-government agreements. Our government has been working with First Nations to resolve historic grievances through the specific claims, and has done so at twice the rate of any previous government in Canada. 475 specific claims have been resolved through negotiated settlement agreements since 1973, with a total compensation value of over $5.6 billion. 67 of these specific claim agreements have been reached since November 2015, with a total compensation value of over $1.6 billion. Les paiements de réclamation et
Payments of claims and tribunal awards up to $150 million come from the Specific Claims Settlement Fund. And anticipated funding is allocated in advance to ensure prompt payments.
Funding will be required during the first quarter of 2019-20 for settlements including the Mohawks of Akwesasne Dundee claim. And as I noted earlier, the best way to support the success of Indigenous communities is to accelerate self-determination and ensure communities have the tools they need to implement their vision of what that means. An exciting new way we are supporting Indigenous people in realizing their vision of self-determination is through the recognition of Indigenous rights and self-determination discussion tables. I'm very pleased to say today that there are over 77 tables with 380 communities and involving more than 800 Indigenous people, and that when there are 634 Indian Act bands in this country, to have 380 communities at tables is I think, a huge success, and is an example of us accelerating the path to self-determination. We are also implementing 25 modern treaties, 18 of which include provisions for self-government or have accompanying self-government agreements, 4 standalone self-government agreements, and 2 sectoral agreements in education. Stable funding of self-government agreements is fundamental to nation, government-to-government, and Inuit to Crown partnerships. Most of the funding for self-government agreements is paid during the first quarter of the fiscal year. In fact, some agreements flow 100% of the funding in April. De plus, le Canada doit fournir un financement stable pour.
In addition, Canada has the obligation to provide stable funding to implement its obligations under the James Bay and Northern Quebec Agreement, including Inuit housing. These agreements require their majority or full annual payment during the first quarter of the fiscal year.
From estimates with you and welcome your questions.
Thank you. And we are going to begin with MP Yves Robillard.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The 2018 budget provided for $101.5 million over 5 years to support capacity building for Aboriginal peoples. Now, this funding is made available to them to support activities which would facilitate the way forward towards reconciliation. Now, investing in capacity building is fundamental, that's clear, to accelerate self-determination. Could you tell us about what's actually happening with the funding that was promised and the types of initiatives that are being funded by this promise? Thank you very much. Well, it's a good news story, really. After the Commission's report, in which it was recommended that nations start to build and to create institutions which would be able to function properly and to ensure self-determination. The 2018 budget invested $101.5 million over 5 years to support the rebuilding of Aboriginal nations, including capacity building and activities to help nations to find their own way towards reconstruction. There were a further 50,000 for measures to bring about self-determination. We have received 300 proposals to date. For 2018-2019. It's a great success story, I think. And I hope that the great work that's been done to bring people together, to engage citizens in the process in rebuilding their nation, and then self-determination actually is spoken more about. Minister, in the supplementary estimates, I see $57 million have been set aside for the settlement of some Aboriginal claims. So you've said several times in the past that you think that negotiation rather than litigation is the best way to right the historic wrongs of the past and to resolve issues that have come to light in the past. So you have shown greater flexibility through this process rather than allowing the courts resolve the issues. Could you explain what you mean by that exactly? Why do you believe so strongly that out-of-court settlements really give better results for everyone involved? Thank you very much. It's a very good question. Communities really prefer negotiation instead of spending lots of money on lawyers, legal fees, and of litigating before the courts. Now, negotiation means that you can also focus on language, on healing. That's not possible when you're in a litigation situation. So it's really preferable to spend the money now in the communities rather than taking things through the court, which takes far too long, in fact. Minister, in your statement, you said that our government was working with First Nations to resolve historic grievances of the past through out-of-court settlements, and this has allowed claims to be dealt with twice as quickly as under previous governments. Could you tell us what you and your department have done differently to accelerate the processing of these claims? Well, that's another good question. I think it's an issue of attitude, really. What we've done, really, is to accept the wrongs of the past. So these wrongs are, and the claims are valid, I think. And it's very important, really, to be fair in settling claims. I'll give you an example. There are many grievances, claims in Alberta pertaining to issues with agriculture. It's a very important issue for a large number of people.
Kathy McLeod.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm going to do a little bit of a history. We all know that it is very rare for the Prime Minister to stand up in the House and do a significant statement. And of course, we look at the residential school apology. And about a year ago, we had the Prime Minister. He stood up in the House February 14th, and he was pleased to announce that the government will develop, in full partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis, a new recognition and implementation of Indigenous right frameworks that will include new ways to recognize and implement Indigenous rights. Going forward, this will guide all the government's interactions. And he also at that time said that they were going to have this framework introduced in 2018. We then learned just this few days ago from Mr. Wernick that there was a very serious policy difference between the former Justice Minister and other ministers, including yourself. And in Mr. Wernick's testimony, he also said there was a decision not to proceed with the Rights and Recognition Framework. We also heard yesterday in testimony...
Chair, point of order, Chair. Once again, I'm hoping this is going to lead to a question, but I don't see the relevance here of once again dredging through what's happened in between the Attorney General the last few days and the Minister being here to answer questions in relation to the supplementary estimates.
Sorry, but the Minister talked about the whole framework in terms of rights and recognition and how they were going to go forward with as a government. This is talking about the Prime Minister's statement, and it is absolutely relevant to her complete purpose and role. So I am focused in on that particular aspect. I'm not focused in on SNC or Director of Prosecutions. I am focused in on what is very directly her role, and that is what the Prime Minister committed to, which was a new Rights and Recognition Framework.
I just urge MPs to try to stick to the estimates, and I think that some concern was related to the Privy Council clerk and other things that seem to be delving into matters which weren't directly relatable. So back to you, Ms. McLeod.
Madam Chair, this was directly regarding his comments about the Rights and Recognition Framework. It is not comments about anything else, and I would suggest that it's very important to the role. We did finally learn, of course, that the although there was a meeting, it really, SNC was the priority for the Prime Minister to talk about, although they ultimately
Once again, Chair, point of order,
issue.
is she just here to grandstand and talk about SNC-Lavalin, or is she here to actually address a minister who's taken her time to come down here and speak to this committee about the supplementary estimates?
Madam Chair, I have my first question regarding to the Minister right this minute.
Place your question. Thank you.
What was this? This is important, I think, for this committee to understand, because we had the Prime Minister make a commitment. We've had you make a commitment. So what is the serious policy difference? Can you share it with this committee?
Well, thank you. I'm very pleased to be able to have the opportunity to explain that I believe that the the policy goals of everyone in our government is to accelerate the progress to self-determination. And what the Prime Minister spoke about last year was the kinds of really serious changes that would have to make on behalf of Canada in order to reach that goal of accelerating the progress to self-determination. We know at the various tables that we are at that the previous comp claims policy was not working. Cede and surrender, having to do that on loans, all of this, that is now all out the window. We are now working with our partners to get that written down. What would be a new approach to comprehensive claims?
So is it,
what is the approach to the inherent right policy? And then how do we put in place
Patience, because the minister's in the midst of responding. I think I was very generous. Please go on.
And so,
Madam Chair,
so
this
what,
is my time. I just want to ask her another question.
Kathy, I would just like to explain that what the Prime Minister described was an ability to change both the policies and legislation where necessary. So we are now being able to put in legislation on language. We hope to put in language on child and family services. We are moving on both the legislation and the policy changes that will help us do our job in the recognition and implementation of Indigenous rights in Canada.
It appears that the commitment made by the Prime Minister on February 14th, which was very specific about a framework around rights and recognition that would be tabled, and then there was a decision not to proceed. So I think we could characterize that as a significant promise that really has resulted in chaos. So I will go on to my next point.
I think that you actually have to understand that this is a partnership, and that when our partners, we have to take the time to get it right, and our partners set the pace for the kind of work that we do together.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So, I know that you have done lots of work, and I will acknowledge with the MNC, AFN, and ITK. What we also know, though, is that about 60% of Indigenous peoples live off reserve, and we have other organizations like Congress of Aboriginal People. I noticed that you signed an MOU with them, an MOA, but unlike groups like the AFN, which have, I believe, close to 90 plus million to do some of the work that they do, there is nothing flowing in terms of either the, for work to implement the MOU that you signed with the Congress of Aboriginal People. There was no dollars that were attached to the work that they were going to need to do around that issue. So I guess what I'm feeling is that whether it's the Daniels decision, we don't know what's happening with the Daniels decision, whether it's a 60% who quite frankly need some support that might be similar. They are the poor cousins to your department.
Thanks for the question. And I think that we were very proud to sign the accord with the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples, and very happy to support their conference a year or so ago on the post-Daniels reality of Métis identity and how we go forward that way. I think that we look forward to working with them in partnership and to make sure that they have the support they need to with work plans in the way that we will need their help. In that you are quite right, that with the next big challenge will be recognizing and implementing the rights of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people who live in urban centres, and that is something that we feel very strongly about, but that is going to, I think David Newhouse's research coming out of Trent will be very interesting in terms of how in urban centres there could be some governance or some organization that would be able to set priorities, identify the needs, interests, and priorities of the people living in urban centres in the same way as we do with the tables of people in community.
I understand there was a comment in Cabinet that indicated that there was no rights in terms of Indigenous off-reserve. So you're clearly stating that there is rights that need recognition off-reserve, because I understand that's contrary to one of your colleagues' comments.
Section 35 rights or Section 35 rights?
Thank you.
Questioning moves to MP Georgina Jolibois.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you for coming. I appreciate this opportunity to ask, since I only get a short period of time. I do want to acknowledge Chief Robert Bertrand, who is in the audience here, and the work that the organization does is very important because it speaks to off-reserve First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people across Canada. Quick question. Is there, and I've noticed like the Conservatives, is there a reason why Congress of Aboriginal Peoples are often left out of the co-developing important legislations with your organizations as well as Minister O'Regan's? I'm curious about that.
I think that coast to coast to coast, we have tried to be as inclusive as we can be, and certainly in the meetings we held after the Prime Minister's speech on February 14th, we chose not to deal just with organizations. We dealt with rights holders in all of the centers that we went to. We had over 50% of women at those meetings. This was about dealing directly with Section 35 rights holders and dealing with them as members of the community, and it was not organized through the AFN or NWAC or ITK. It was organized by region and directly with rights holders. So we look forward to being able to co-develop future policies and legislation on the issues that would be impliqué by the members of CAP, but it's a matter of us working with everybody to make sure that we are able to get the best possible policies.
Okay, thank you. Another question. The Indigenous languages legislation that Minister Rodriguez put forward, and the Committee of Heritage Committee is studying it right now, and going through, and many witnesses have appeared this far, and I understand that it will wrap up this week to see witnesses. That is a very important legislation. I cannot emphasize that enough. In my opinion, it is being rushed, and I'm not alone in that opinion because many witnesses have expressed that concern about the legislation being rushed. I'm hoping you can comment on what your involvement is in the legislation, and is the government open to making changes to the legislation? Thank you.
Thank you, and I think that it is hugely important, as that, you know, as so many of our partners will say, that the language is who you are. It is your identity, and I think that we know that secure personal cultural identity leads to better health, education, and economic outcomes. This is about the identity of a people and peoples. The legislation was organized based on co-development and 12 agreed upon principles for the legislation, and I think I see it much more like the Canada Health Act, where there's some principles and there's some organizations. It's not prescriptive in any way, but in some ways the purpose of the legislation is to explain that language is part of Section 35. It's not separate, it's not optional, but that language is a right for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples.
Thank you. And a quick question. ITK is one of the co-developing groups that you speak about. As you know, the position of ITK's position is very concerned with the legislation, and they've expressed their concerns openly and in committee, and they've done a fine job in providing their reasons behind it. They weren't alone. There are other witnesses that we heard from also suggested this. And is the government open to legislate Indigenous languages as an official language like the French and English, and that's what has come out so far. What is the government's position on that?
Well, I think that, again, that this piece of legislation is an excellent beginning, and it makes very clear how important Indigenous languages are as we celebrate the International Year of Indigenous Languages. I think that there is a lot of work to be done, and that is what was always the commitment with ITK and with Inuit, how we would go forward to be able to craft what they will need, and we will continue these conversations to make sure that the rights are implemented in a way that's effective. As you know, the focus, as the minister has said, is on fluency and us making sure that First Nations, Inuit, and Métis are part and parcel and able to direct the funding for it in a way that they find the most effective.
Thank you. You have about 45 seconds. 45 seconds. Quick question. Regarding the funding, how come the government hasn't provided the amount of funding to go to the legislation?
I think that, it's March 19th, I think, is coming up, and all of us have, our requests into the finance minister and the prime minister, and we eagerly look forward to being able to properly fund the priorities of the government.
Thank you. Thank you.
Questioning moves to Will Amos.
Sure. And thank you, Minister, and to your senior officials. It's always appreciated when you take the time to come. Today, I want to focus a little bit on the Métis side of the question. You spoke about accelerating Indigenous self-determination and the importance of closing socioeconomic gaps. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to expand a bit on this. By way of example, there's significant funding in the estimates for a Métis housing strategy. And I think we'll all agree that more needs to be done to close gaps in housing for the Métis in Canada. But can you explain how this is going to be delivered? In particular, what mechanisms are going to be used that enable Métis delivery of this housing strategy?
So the agreement now has been with the Métis National Council, but we are working with all of the governing members to look forward to their needs. At the moment, they are. There is a formula for the first 3 years, and then we will, in year 4, we'll move to a more needs-based approach that we will co-develop with the governing members.
Okay, and how can it be? How have the Métis articulated their desire to maintain control over the delivery of this? What have been the key messages coming? Not just from the national organization, but also from people on the ground, people who are, who are deeply engaged with the Métis community.
Well, I think you've said it. They want control of how it's distributed. Period. This isn't about us and a government program where we fund this and we don't fund that. They want to make sure their members are properly housed. If it's to go to renovation, that's what they'd like. If it's to, as you know, in Manitoba, they've moved to a first home ownership opportunity. President Poitras in Alberta has huge experience in housing. They've done an amazing job. So it really is going to be them moving in the way that they design to be able to do the needs assessment and then be able to fund it in the way that they choose.
Thank you. On the cultural side, you highlighted funding that was requested to support the construction of a Métis National Heritage Centre in Winnipeg. I cannot wait for the opportunity to learn from that Heritage Centre once it's completed. And you noted also that the funding is going to support the Métis Nation's management of its own culture, art, history, which is great. How will this change the way things have been done in the past around the telling of the Métis story?
Well, I too think it's very exciting, and that it really is. It's about nation building, and it's about out of the shadows. It is what the forgotten people. This is about once again having an opportunity for Métis to tell their stories and to be able to really correct some of the misinformation that has been out there, and from Louis Riel to Gabriel Dumont. These are not things that we learn in school. What is exciting, I think, in terms of a place for artifacts, a place to tell the story, I'm not sure yet, but I'm sure the chair would agree that the work that the Museum of Human Rights is doing now in its virtual way of disseminating information coast to coast to coast is the real opportunity of now understanding that it's never just a building. It is an opportunity to disseminate the history, the culture, and have young Métis youth be really proud of who they are and their heritage and how they go forward. And I must say that at every meeting, the Métis youth are so impressive in whether they're paddling or beading or jigging. To see them back in touch with their language and culture is total inspiration, in that so many of their parents are now only discovering their Métis heritage.
Thank you, Minister. Chair, how much time do I have left?
1 minute.
Okay. I will then I'll take that time to make two brief comments. Number one, that I think that this is not only a fabulous initiative for the Métis, but as you said, for the rest of Canada, and it should be a great driver for tourism. I expect that there will be a lot of people coming from places all around the world very keen to learn about our Métis nation's history. In fact, all of the Americas have a whole history of mestizaje, and that is absolutely of great significance as we trade more and more with the other countries in the Americas. I'd also like to invite you, Minister, and communicate to the rest of your team that the first weekend of June is always the greatest of Algonquin powwows in Kitigan-Zibi. It is a lot of fun. I go every year, and of course that community would love to have you. So I'll take the liberty of inviting you formally to that event. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you.
Amos, and when we talk about the Métis, we mustn't forget the Road Allowance people, Rooster Town, and Marianne Gavity. I had to get that on record because. Thank you very much,
Madam
Minister.
Chair, yeah.
Yes. Moving on to MP Orno Pearson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just to get on the record here, thank you, Minister, for being here as well. We had the Minister earlier, O'Regan, before you. I think there's one more minister, though, isn't there? A northern minister?
The allocation and the supplementary estimates.
So
well, you are right, MP Pearson. We
Yeah.
understand that we're in conversation with the Minister of Northern Affairs, and that perhaps we'll find time to bring him he'll come to the committee. So
Super
we'll
duper,
have
'cause
three
that-
ministers.
Madam, if I could clarify that, it's one department. So Diane is the deputy, the associate deputy for Minister LeBlanc. So it's one appropriation from our CERNAC department, and so it's kind of ours.
Well, that's precisely
Okay,
why I
that
was
fight
bringing
has to
it
be
up.
somewhere else.
Because I noticed in budget 2018 that just over $70 million was allocated, and then or budgeted, and then only $6 million was allocated, and so it seems that the Treasury Board did not allocate that money. But that's not the only budget initiative that didn't, and that's for the new fiscal relationship strengthening First Nations communities, institutions, and community capacity. But in total, 128 million was not allocated or was withheld by the Treasury Board. Why? Yeah, this is like the vote 40. Why was a total of 129 million withheld from your department by the Treasury Board?
I think Alex will explain this in terms of the Treasury Board processes, and unlocking that money is a technical issue. So go for it, Alex. Yeah.
Thank you for the question. So there is a distinction between the funding and the approvals of the initiatives.
Yeah.
But I think about your question about the money, and you refer to the fiscal institutions. There is money in the main estimates, which is we're asking for $1.4 million, but there is also money in the base of the main estimates. So the total in this fiscal year for fiscal institutions, if that's what your question is about $19.7 million.
19. Yeah, so it's but the particular budget line was the new fiscal relationship strengthening institutions and community. Vote 40. It appears to be
So
that
that's
the Treasury
because
Board.
it's 3-year funding.
Yeah.
3-year
So
funding.
the amount that's been drawn down is the full amount for the first year,
6
but the
million.
vote holds the funding for a 3-year period. So that's
Okay.
why it might be a little bit confusing.
But it appears to be that the Treasury Board did not allocate the funds because there was no plan. Is that
No,
correct?
it allocated the full amount for year 1, and then in year 2, we'll go seek that full amount again.
We have to go back every year.
So it was $189 million over 3 years. In year 1, the amount for 18-19 was $48.8 million.
48.8 million, but only 6 million was allocated.
No.
No, that's what it shows on budget 2018. 70 million allocated, 6 million,
Oh,
and withheld is 65.
Oh, yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
Alex.
You are correct. The total budget is $71.8 million.
Yeah.
$6 million was allocated in vote 10, grant and contribution. There is $65 million to be allocated in the next 2 years.
In the next 2 years.
Yes.
Okay, so it is coming.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, very good. Minister, in the horizons items of the 2018-19 supplement estimates, the funding for the reconsideration of the Trans Mountain Expansion Project, INAC received $312,000 for operation expenditures to support consultations with Indigenous peoples. I'm sure you've heard from First Nations across the country who have said that there have been no real consultations on C-48 or C-69. They say that these bills are flawed because they proceeded without their consent. Do you believe that the consultation process for C-48, the tanker ban, and C-69 was that flawed, considering that that's what the First Nations are claiming?
I think the most important, I think that the question around the TMX expansion project means that as we went back to re-engage in this very, very intensive way, the issue, I think, had been that there wasn't really an understanding of the need for accommodation and in terms of the rights holders. And so what we are supporting here is the ability to go into communities and find out what their needs are in terms of accommodation as we go
what
forward.
you've learned with TMX, though, would that...
The question period for MP Virson is expired, and we're moving over to MP Mike Bossio.
As always, Minister, real pleasure to have you here at committee. Thank you, staff, as well. You're becoming a regular fixture as well at our committee, so we greatly appreciate you all taking the time out of your very busy schedules to be here. I wanted to go to the specific claim side and the rights tables, because I think, you know, in your speech you actually outlined some real progress that is happening in this direction. You know, and I'll read it. You know, an exciting new way we are supporting Indigenous peoples in realizing their vision of self-determination is through the recognition of Indigenous rights in self-determination discussion tables. Now 77 tables with 380 communities. That's over half of the communities in the country, and that's in, like, I mean, the speech was in February of 2018. You know, so I mean, I mean, I would argue what was mentioned here earlier by a previous member that actually there's real progress that is happening. The real progress we've never seen before as a country. I'd like you to expand on that and where you now see the path moving forward as to how we do evolve towards a full rights table.
So I think to characterize the progress is to underline the work that communities are doing and how ready they were for someone to open the door. A lot of them had already been working, reconstituting their nations, working on their constitutions, writing their laws, doing all of these things. And now it's up to us to step up and try and keep pace with them, with their ambition. And that's what's been so exciting as more and more communities are choosing to come together and do the hard work it takes to get to self-determination. I think one of the exciting examples of the kind of work that's been done are in the groups that are already self-governing and have modern treaties. The work that they've done on the collaborative fiscal arrangement has been a real incentive, I think, for others to see, oh, this could be hugely important for our community to get this work done so that we can be self-governing, because we will be funded properly in terms of language and culture and all of the things that it takes for them to run a government, as opposed to being funded in a haphazard way, never quite enough, and in the way that people were treated under the Indian Act. And so I think on both of those things, I think that Joe Wild's approach didn't start with the Prime Minister's speech. That this has been going on really since 2015, a new way. That, as you know, in BC, people weren't really happy with the treaty process, or some had left the treaty process because they thought it was too prescriptive. So we've offered another way of going about getting to a final agreement, and that means that we sit down with them and work on their needs, interests, and priorities, and you know, over a third of them have put child and family services as one of their priorities. 23 nations here in Ontario work together on a school system. The coastal First Nations are working on a fishery, so that we are being flexible to allow them to work in whatever way they want to get out from under the Indian Act and assert their jurisdiction on the areas of their priority. And so that's why I think people are coming to tables to just say, this is what we want to work on with you, and then our job is to get out of the way so they can actually govern themselves in that jurisdiction. Others will want to move to a full modern treaty, and a lot of those are, particularly in British Columbia, are doing that. But even in that treaty process, I was very excited to see that, you know, there's all these sort of prescribed stages that two of the communities have decided that was too prescriptive for them, and they want to step aside and do it differently. So they are going to go for a core treaty in very plain language. So they're they're 7 generations out will understand what they signed, and the legal stuff will be inside agreements. But again, it's really exciting to learn at each of these tables and then watch some of the other tables pick up the good idea and say, no, we could do it this way. Because the other piece that's important is that these communities and the leadership, chief and council, have to have their communities with them. And they have to actually have it ratified by their community. And so bringing their communities with them, the kind of consultation that they are doing is inspiring. And I was just thinking I was just the social development and the self-government work that's done by somebody like Tanaha at the same time is just totally inspiring.
MP Kevin Wall will round up the end of our allocated time. No pressure.
Okay,
yeah,
no
okay.
pressure. Thank you, Minister and officials. TRC completed that 7-year mandate, roughly 60 million, and I think we all agree it was very complicated. They did some fine work, 7 years, 60 million. But the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Wow, Minister. Your pockets are empty. You've added 38 more million 3 months ago. It has been a disaster. I have talked to one of the people from Saskatoon that was on the committee that couldn't wait to get off the committee. And now we're up to, I guess, 92 million and counting. This can't be good. Who wears this?
Well, I think I would obviously take the opposite view of that. It is good. It is
good that we're at 92 million?
It is important that the families were heard. It's important that there is a way of putting in place the concrete steps to end this terrible tragedy. It's what the families have been asking for over a decade. And to just go back to the TRC, the TRC was not a national public inquiry. It didn't have it wasn't under the Inquiries Act, and it didn't have those kinds of constraints of what you have to see in a national public inquiry. We had to have orders in council in all the provinces and territories. We actually were able to make sure that again, like the TRC, that there needed to be supports and services for families. There needed to be aftercare. We learned a lot about the need for aftercare, and certainly the families have made that very clear to us. But it is this is a very important exercise that will bring help to bring, as we've heard all of this time, justice to the families, support for the families, and concrete measures to make sure it doesn't happen again. And so as we go forward, I think that we responded, I think, in a meaningful way to the interim report around the commemoration fund and the healing, as well as the RCMP able to deal with major cases in best practices. So even I would say from the TRC, but plus everything we heard at the pre-inquiry gatherings, even the changes and the needs for reform on child and family services, almost every family at those gatherings had an attachment to the child and family welfare system, whether it was the victims or whether it was the perpetrators, the incidents of child abuse, all of these things. And that so on sexism and racism in policing to child and family services, these are things that we have always said we weren't going to wait till the end of the commission to get this done, but we did need families to know that they would be heard.
So when will this be done?
The end of April is when they will present their final report.
Were you shocked at the more money they needed? When this first started, it seemed they were driving backwards instead of looking forwards. There didn't seem to be a coherent, they just didn't seem to be together at first. There was more people leaving the commission than there were staying on. Have we learned anything by it?
I think what we've learned is it's really hard work. This is really tough stuff to hear. It is that that it is that people need a time out and need to be able to heal themselves. And so it is going to, we just are so grateful to the families and that have helped, the Grandmothers Council, the commissioners. This is hard work, and I know it'll be worth it.
Looking forward to the
Thank
report
you.
in April.
And on behalf of the committee, thank you once again for coming and sharing your thoughts, answering our questions. And we appreciate it. Miigwech. Au revoir. Dobry.
Thank you.